You're very welcome back. In this video, I thought I'd talk a little bit about teams, because even though I'm actually, if you want, I'm on my own, it may seem, I actually have a team around me. The team is in some parts visible and some not visible. And it was just something when I was thinking about the team that I'm building at the minute around me. I reflected a little bit on teams I've worked with before in different areas, both sport and in a business world. Um, what I've found is previously, I found teams, they're really not team in the definition I would have as a team. They're groups, and quite a lot they're actually, my experience would be some of them are protecting themselves from good, bad, and ugly that goes on within teams, to be honest. Um, the team that I'm building, it's a flat structure where everyone's voice is heard. The discussions are always about the problem we're trying to solve. It's a team where everybody is allowed contribute once it's towards the goal, and we fight towards the goal or fight towards the mission. The discussions around different challenges we have, we bring solutions. There's no wrong solution once it's applied to the mission. And if we have to argue, we argue about the solution, but not the person who's providing the solution. So what I'm trying to say is, if you create an unsafe environment where honesty is going to be penalized, so you know that you've been in rooms too where someone goes, "No, I want you to be totally honest with me," and actually that's not what they want. They're looking for an opportunity to tell you you're wrong, or someone else thinks you're wrong, something along those lines. And I suppose what I'm looking at is, as a leader of this team and as a leader of teams I've worked in before, I've had to create a space, and I will not be in a team that doesn't have space for me to be honest about the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I'll give you an example of my shooting at the moment, even. How can I develop if I'm not going to be honest about what's just happened in a shot? So, for example, I go from the 10.5 out to a 9, and I'm asked by my coach, so what happened there? If I'm being anything other than honest about exactly what happened, we can't analyze it, we can't fix it, and we can't improve it. If I'm worried that if I say the wrong thing, a coach is going to jump on me and go, "Well, I told you not to do that," or "That's not the way we talked about doing it," then I'm going to protect myself. And unfortunately, within teams I've been in before, I would have protected my own sanity by realizing, I suppose, that by being honest, it wasn't going to bring constructive discussions around things. Showing vulnerability around mistakes, for example. If your team can't be vulnerable about the mistakes they've made, how do you help them actually improve? And for that, you have to do a few different things. Removing ego would be one. And ego can be removed quite easily once we look at what we're trying to do. So I don't need to be the smartest guy in the team to help. I have input. I have input as a shooter. I've had input as project managers. I've had input as C-level IT directorship. I'd better not be the smartest person in the room, or I'm in the wrong room, would be my motto as well, and my belief. What I'm looking for is everybody to be free to analyze a challenge I'm putting out on the table without fear of "I know better than you" type stuff. So that's probably the focus for me as a team. That's the one thing. And as the leader of my team, I'll create that space. And if that's not a space that's going to be protected by me, then how can my team give 100%? Um, I've been in dressing rooms in GAA terms, so I've been in Leinster finals where you can see factions within the team. By that I mean you've got it's 15 individuals in some respects, but it could be made up of different clubs within that. So you'll have clubs taking care of their own. So there might be three people from a certain club. Well, if everybody is not honest about what's going on and their contribution, and everyone is protecting their own little space, how can that actually survive? In business, if you go into a room at a meeting where you're doing a discovery, we'll say we're doing, I don't know, a post-project review, for example. And they're actually a double-edged sword. You'll often hear people go, oh, this is a place where we can be open and honest about what did and didn't work. And well, that's not the truth. You know that anything you say can and potentially will be used against you. So in those rooms, will create a space where nobody is going to be contradicted, because I do want people to be honest about project work. I want them to tell me what did and didn't work, what they may do better next time. But you'll find very few people stupid enough to put their head above the parapet if all they're going to get is swiped at. So I suppose my goal, and it's now being exemplified within this shooting environment I'm in, it's to create a space where nobody, and I do mean nobody, comes into this little circle we have and wants to be right or wants to be better. There is no right person or better than everybody else. Everyone has a contribution. Everyone has input. Once it's focused on the mission, and it's about the problem, never the person showing the problem. And if someone's made a mistake, we can grow. We can actually create more trust, more belief, and it's actually a stronger team that will fight together when you realize you're fighting for the one thing. In this case, we're talking potentially LA 28, right? The team I want around me are people who are very open, very honest, and can be most vulnerable by showing how they actually may have made a mistake or they have doubted something they are doing. So we can support that, we can make it stronger. And in effect, once that team is put together, you can't pull it apart. We can go and stress test that in European championships, world championships, Olympic stage. It won't be pulled apart because people can be vulnerable and people can show they've made mistakes or they think they might make a mistake and they're not going to be beaten up over it. We can rectify it, build it, make it stronger. I think once people stop being honest about it, our goal or our mission, it's going to die. You'll have someone protecting their little space. For example, I've got a fantastic coach, but if that coach started protecting their position as, well, I'm telling you what to do when you're not doing it type stuff, will I benefit? My answer would be no. Same as if I have a C-level head, the CEO is sitting me down at the table and they're positioning themselves that, well, I didn't make the mistake here, you made the mistake. Well, if that's the environment you're in, you either stay in it and accept the fact that you're always going to be thrown under a bus somewhere. Nobody wants that. No one's going to. And now I'll end up defending myself. So I would refuse to be in that environment. There's a time for dismantling problems and breaking them down and building them back up. And it has to be done where everyone is open and honest and no one's trying to get the one-upmanship as such. And I own this whole thing. So if I roll that out and everybody owns their element, here's a challenge I've come across where, for example, you'll say to someone, is such and such a thing done? And they'll go, well, I'm waiting for a phone call back. I can tell you right now, that wouldn't be something I'd be ever happy about hearing. Waiting is not a status. It never was. I want someone to go, if I'm coming to Kevin for a meeting, or if Kevin, in his case, but Kevin will do it, but I don't expect everybody to hold themselves to the same level. I'd never go into a meeting with a status update of I'm waiting for something. I would go in going, I've just called the person, I've left them a voice message, I've told them I'm going to be back in 1 hour to check on them again. That's actually a similar circumstance, but a different focus. So there's work involved in that. There's something being done. I don't wait for people to get things done. And an email from me looking for passing over something is really not what I'm looking for. An example, and I've come across it while I was in the medical environment where one department will refer you to the other. That's their job done. In my opinion, the job is completed when the person who receives the referral on the other side rings the person up and goes, I got that referral from you and that's now in my pipeline. Now that's done. But if all I'm doing is moving emails around my mailbox, what will I achieve? And in this environment here, I have to step up 100% every day and own every element that's within my realm, if you want, to improve my shooting. Same thing with the coach, same thing with my loaders, same thing with logistics, same thing with the leadership. Everybody has to be doing, and I do know we're blessed to have a team that does this. It's not a natural occurrence, I'll tell you. I've worked in industry where people have been paid to do it and they haven't. And now I come to this wonderful environment that I'm actually part of, and I've got volunteers trying to help to the maximum of their ability. And that's a pretty unique environment to be in. The waiting thing, yeah, that was something I was told in very early on, and it was something that stuck with me, obviously. Um, and it's something I've always been very uncomfortable with ever since. When I hear someone saying, "Oh, well, I'm waiting," or I'll coming to a meeting, for example, and the question is asked, and the answer is, "Oh, I'll check when I leave," and you're going, "Well," in my mind, I'm going, "Why didn't you check coming in here? Did you do everything within your power?" By the way, so other people will not take outside of your company. They won't take things as seriously. By that I mean you'll ask them to do something. Respectfully, they have a pipeline of work that really you might not be at the top of it. However, you can put yourself on the top of that. You come to a meeting and you actually are prepared. So you come with statuses of it's being done. The guy says it's going to be this day or that day. I'm leaving. I've come in here before I came. I rang. I left a message. I'm calling them back immediately, and I will have an update within 1 hour. And that's the type of thing you do. You own it. It's not okay to just sit there and go, somebody else is having a problem, or someone's not coming back to me. And that's why I love stand-ups, for example, in Scrum. It's what happened yesterday, what's happening today, and what the blockers are. And I can tell you, if you showed up in front of me 2 days in a row with the same blocker and you've tried to do nothing about it, I'd be asking you what steps you're going to take to improve on that. Again, there's no mistake here. It's down to everybody to own it. And I own my slice, and I expect everybody else to own their slice. And I believe that's a lead by example, but it's also more, I think it's a well balanced team where you don't have to ask people to step up, where they actually want to step up. And that's, again, I'm blessed to have that in my environment. That's not something in industry I wouldn't have actually come into teams who naturally gravitated towards that. And yet I find myself in the target shooting arena and everybody wants to own it. And that's a phenomenal situation to be in. Um, what would happen, for example, if the logistics person in charge of getting us to a competition, if their work unit, if you want, was, well, I've sent an email to, I don't know, the person in the hotel, would that secure? And I mean, here's the thing, by the way, the insecurity around logistics is a massive amount of stress for competition. Can you imagine the stress around, are we ever going to get there? Or has it been booked? Or has something gone wrong and no one's told us? And now we're wondering why we're stuck in an airport with a guy in two wheelchairs with a load of baggage and stuff like that. And someone's answer is, well, I sent an email and that was their work done. Again, I'm blessed that doesn't happen. I've got people who really, really, really make things work every time. Um, Phenomenal group to be around. Um, that's what I call stepping up, and that's the type of team that I have around me. It's ownership again, and I'd like to think it's because there's no fear of someone, me for example, firing back. I don't do that type of thing anyway, naturally. But I would look at if things went wrong, we find an opportunity to, we fix the problem, by the way. The problem is the thing we need to fix, not that, oh, someone got something wrong. It's the problem needs to be fixed, and we will circle at some stage and go back and go, how would we avoid this the next time? For me, a mistake is a mistake when you do it once. After that, it's a choice. But it's about the sanctity of the team, and the team should feel free to put 100% in, and that when things go wrong, as they inevitably will, I could make a mistake and leave a rifle behind or something like that, for example. Well, I wouldn't be going anywhere without the rifle, but I might leave an element out of my training, for example, that I made a mistake on. I might be honest with the coach then and go, actually, I've left that out. I should have done it. This is what I'm doing to rectify it, and it won't be happening again. Again, that's the mistake once, the ownership, and it doesn't happen a second time. The reality, too, by the way, is sport is very, in our sport, it's very Boolean. It happens or it doesn't happen. It's a win or it's not. It's a good shot or it's not. It's not, it's not about what we tried to do or we wanted to do. It has to happen. And the beauty of what I've had for an example too of coaching, the coaches I benefit the most from are the ones who take a look specifically with my sport, by the way. I'm sitting in a wheelchair. But sitting in the wheelchair, you could put 10 people in wheelchairs, and there'll be 62 of us in one of the future competitions coming up. We'll all be different in all our ways. The biomechanics are different. The way we sit with a rifle, it's different. If my coach is not able to actually think outside of what a manual says we should be doing, does that actually help me get any better? For me, it's always the athlete first, the disability second. However, you need to look at how the disability affects the athletic side of things. You need someone who can think outside of the box. When I started sailing, for example, I had great coaches. And every now and again, you get someone in who was early on in their learning curve, if you want, as a coach, for example, and they'd start talking to you in the way the textbook talks. But I wouldn't have been 12 years old at that stage where a coach can give you that type of information and you don't know better. Also, you're far more limber. The joints I have don't work the same way as a 13, 14-year-old, for example. So the textbook will say this is the way you execute a attack, for example. I don't have the same body at 50 something X years that I had when I was in my teens. Therefore, I can't duck under a boom as simply. Well, I can't duck anymore. But the type of thing I'm looking at is I need a coach who can bring his best game, and I have one. He's worked in a wheelchair to see how it actually works. He looks at me biomechanically and goes, this is how we're going to work with this to make it fit the profile we have. That's the A game again. And you can imagine the amount of discussion that goes on between myself and a coach where he's learning and I'm learning. He's not throwing the textbook at me. He's been vulnerable enough to go, this is how I think it works. I'm being vulnerable enough to go, actually, I screwed up. This is the way it should work, or that's the way it does work. And that type of honesty, if we couldn't get that sorted, our team couldn't survive and we just could not progress to 28. We couldn't progress to next week, to be honest. A thought that I had as well is, the clock is right twice a day, even when it's broken. The worst thing I could do is build the wrong biomechanical setup and get lucky, because it's not actually something when the pressure comes on, and this is actually the litmus test. The strength of the team is really only visual when the stress comes onto it. That's the key. And that's when you'll find out just how much honesty, truth, openness, and actually who's bringing the A game. And you'll also see who actually takes the protective position when it hits the fan. And that actually is probably one of the best test environments. When it's stressed, that's when you find out the type of team you have built around you. The worst thing could happen you is, and we've done this before, you fire a shot and it's a 10.7, we'll say. Then you shoot 4 shots and they're 9 point somethings out to the right hand side or the left hand side. And actually, there's nothing wrong with that once you realize the 9s were the good shots and the 10 was actually the liar in the middle of it. But if you line up everything against the mistake, and that becomes your future, if you want, that becomes your way of doing things. Now, do you ever actually get any better, or does it hit a plateau and you never go any further? Good results, they can hide a weak process. A win, it protects bad habits. We've been in projects that succeeded even though the team tore itself apart, both in sport and both in the work environment. And what can really be a bad thing is when that's actually the new way of working, so that from then on, that's the holy grail. Well, that's the way we did it last time and it worked. Again, the clock is right twice a day, even when it's not working. So it's best to build the team from the ground up with the right mindset and the right value set. And then you succeed. When it comes under pressure, it doesn't fall apart. And I believe that's how teams should be built. They should be built in the safest way possible where people don't feel threatened. If you think about Maslow went off on the hierarchy, if you want, the pyramid of needs, the physical needs. But I'd say Maslow could have been translated across into work environments where people needs, before they can become creative and deliver high performance, you need to meet their basic needs, which are they need to feel safe in the environment so they can be vulnerable, so they can actually not have to cover their back. Because if you're looking in the rearview mirror, you can't see what's ahead of you. So it's very important for me that this team continues in the way it is. Again, I'm blessed. I have to be honest again. This is a group of volunteers. There's no paid roles here. And it's a better environment than environments I've worked in where people were paid substantial amounts of money. What I'm trying to say is it's the team you build, not the money you put into it, that makes the team right or team strong. I'd say the most peaceful environments are the most honest ones, where there's no power being pulled, where there's no positions being pulled, where it's not a hierarchy in the room, where people won't talk because they're afraid of the person who's more senior. That's a challenge I faced before, where senior, God help us, senior and junior. And what that implies is, well, I'm here 5 years, therefore I'm senior. Time is not a metric for me. Senior is how good are you at bringing solutions to problems. That would put you ahead for me in terms of seniority. And someone for software development, for example, someone who has a head on them that's able to think about problem solving or IT, bringing me solutions to problems rather than telling me we have a problem. I believe that the most peaceful ones are the most honest ones and are the most productive ones. I don't think the pressure builds the team. I actually think it reveals it. Some people talk about, oh, we need to forge it and fire, all that good stuff. I'm not about that at all. I'm about quiet, calm. Has to be. And that's the type of team that I'm building at the moment and is building around me. And it's a self-opting one. Some people will enjoy that and some people will not. But what I'm creating is I want people to gravitate towards it and see it for what it is and enjoy what it brings. Protect the mission, not yourself, would be one of the fundamentals in the whole philosophy. If everybody focuses on the mission and not how they're perceived, I think you've got a great, strong team around you. I'd like to thank you for dropping by, and I hope to see you here again. Thank you.